Welcome to another episode of Your One Black Friend. Here is part 2 of Jolie and Cosmic's discussion on time loops, dark matter, and reality transurfing.
But yeah, any other points you want to add in terms of like dark matter or doppelgangers palette? I do want to say this because I've actually been holding this thought.
Mhm.
So a few things I noticed. So while watching the show, first of all, she like her husband starts flossing and she goes, "Since when did you floss?" And immediately I was like, "So your old husband had bad breath because how do you not floss?"
Do you floss every time?
What? Yes. I'm insane. No, I floss in the morning and I floss at night. And I have two different mouthwash. So I floss first and then I use the mouthwash to clean my, to clean the gums. And then I brush my teeth and then I use my mouthwash again. So like I floss to open up the gum, then I use the one mouthwash, then I brush in between, and then I use another mouthwash to rinse. Like, yeah. So yeah. So to me, I feel like the guy had to have bad breath. And then if you watch the show, first, that's my observation. And then you watch the show, like the things he's doing for her, the doppelganger, Jason B. He's like, he buys his son a car, he quits his job and gets them like hella money. He's trying to like support her with her art stuff or whatever. He's like very supportive of her, like getting back to art and painting this, that, and the other. I feel like if I'm chilling, all of a sudden, like my husband just started like doing like the most and like all of the things that he was doing, where it was just like, oh, now we're multimillionaires now, and you can just follow your heart. You don't have to work, and we don't have to live like this and this. That I would have been like, babe, I know you're not like, I know something happened. Just go ahead first and tell me what happened. And then once he told me, I'd be like, okay, that's fine. Where's your box? Because let me just brick this thing myself.
Yeah. Yeah. Seriously?
Immediately.
I think it's I love that. I do love that point you've made. I think that's what makes the show unique. Your other Jolie wouldn't do what you just said.
Right.
I think your other Jolie would do what Daniela is doing. Somehow they've settled with this life that they have, and they're okay with it. Once or twice, maybe once or twice, it wouldn't be a regret, but it'd be a thought. If we had gone down that road the other night, we'd have probably been somewhere else. Yeah, it's cool. We're okay. We're here. They're not homeless. They don't have any illness, disease. They're good for money. It could be better. Of course, everyone else would say certain things could be better. Like you and I were talking about the environment, the system, all the things we're experiencing. Things can be better. And I assume in the parallel Earth, they're all also better. And just because they're better in parallel realities doesn't mean they can be better here either. There's something off. So I feel for the story to work the way it's working, and I don't fully agree with it. I'm just saying I almost want to say because of what people are used to today in terms of TV, we had to write it like this so people just get it. That's why when I watch it in shows, I'm like, yo, you're allowed 3 stupid characters and 3 episodes of stupidity. After those 3, you got to come quick because this is not a regular reality. Like my brother and I have this click. If anything outside of the ordinary happens and it's consistent and it's a longevity thing, whatever issues you'd have had prior to that experience is dead on that day. The next thing is, what are we doing? For example, standard trope, zombie outbreak. Where are we going? What are we eating? Where are we bunking at? And start training. And how, are we, in fact, do we want to off ourselves? Because are we playing survival and reset the world? Or what do we do? We need to choose. You said this to me yesterday, so I can't stand characters that make silly decisions because of typical TV viewing or for the story to go a particular way. That's why I was teasing when I was talking to you earlier on a while back before we even discussed about making the show. When Amanda chose to wear heels, because she made the decision, not Jason A. She already figured out, and that made sense that she figured out Jason A wasn't Jason B. The way he was speaking, Layton could have figured it out, but again, for the sake of the show, I appreciate Amanda figuring it out. It makes sense because of her profession. She's a psychologist, right? A therapist. So the behaviors from Jason B clearly different from Jason A. But Daniela is not in that profession. So she might take a little while, even though she loves him. I get it.
Disrespectful to artists, though. Like, that's very
true. Again, it's funny how you're seeing it from that perspective. So it makes me even wonder how the writers, I don't know. It'd be cool to even have an interview with the original writer of the book before the writers of the show, because it's funny how they viewed art. I feel Daniela's perspective would be both worlds, the artistic tapping into the infinite source and taking the role of Amanda, because you're able to do that with your mind. When you paint, when you create something, you're experiencing your own artwork from multiple perspective and vantage points of different customers or clients or people. This one's going to feel this way. This one's going to feel that way. And even having that experience, you're not going to be, I could argue, you're not going to experience everyone's feeling on one art piece. I think, or maybe I could say for myself, because I want to experience someone else experiencing the art piece uniquely rather than just saying, oh, 10,000 people are going to come to the gallery show. This one's going to feel that way. That one's going to cry. So, nah, I want to be able to experience maybe 500 and then the rest experience it without having to tap into all of that. So, I feel an artist should do the job of Amanda and Daniela. But I still appreciate that Daniela did that. Jason didn't even figure it out. He was still struggling, even though he had already created the box in his reality, but a smaller cube. So while he was struggling, I was like, again, for the sake of writing, but I still appreciate Amanda being the one to say, yo, let's go. And she took him to that. Do you know what it is to go to a place you've never entered before? With this Jason that you already figured out internally, this ain't Jason B. So for the love she had for Jason A, and like, yo, if you stay here, you about to cook your ass. I just shot that girl in front of you, a headshot. So to just drag him in with heels on, I'm like, didn't Jason B have a conversation with you about the corridor? And if he didn't, then it shows how cagey he was, or he is, that he didn't trust Amanda enough to discuss what it was like. Unless he just walk into it the first time and that was it? He must have walked into it once.
No, and that's the thing.
He didn't?
No, that tells me if you look at so on the show, like it's trial and error, trial and error, trial and error, while they're trying to learn how the box works. There's no way the Jason B figured it out on the first jump. That means he had to gone through shit. So for me, I'm already rooting for Jason B. Like, I don't want an inferior partner. Like, if you give me so,
no
like,
way. I thought I knew you, Jolie.
No, it's true. Look, let's go back to parallel universes. Somewhere out there is a different version of the Dark Matter book, and it's written by a different version of Blake Crouch. And Blake Crouch sat down and was like, let's be actually real here. Because let me tell you this interesting thing. I study psychology at university. So you could say I'm Amanda. Obviously, you guys, I'm always talking to you guys about physics, and I'm an artist. Yeah. So it's like they took all the women.
Combination of both. Yeah.
And here you go. Right. Let me tell you something. Okay. In a parallel universe, Blake Crouch wrote Dark Matter, but he wrote something that was a little bit more realistic in the sense of that Jason is married to an artist. If they really actually loved each other the way they want us to believe he loved each other, to the point where this dude suffered on his own to get to that exact reality. Because to your point, it's not like he just woke up and was like, all right, here we go. Like he probably had to go back and get because he knew exactly where the more vials were to keep. He did this shit on his own. Okay. So in a different reality, that is it. What's her name? The wife?
Daniela.
Her being an if they really actually loved each other, she would have sat and listened to this guy talk about parallel universes, quantum physics, theoretical physics, the implication of it, what it means, to the point where it would have absorbed in her psyche and it would be affecting her art, where she would be painting about parallel universes. Here, you're married to somebody. Yes, maybe he ended up just being a professor, but as you said, he made a small version prototype. So he's deeply immersed in the science, and you guys are supposed to be close, and you don't know shit about parallel universes. Like, you're not even listening to anything he's realistically. This man, because I do the same thing, I be talking to my husband about this shit on the daily, and he doesn't always, like, most of the time he's like, Joe, like, this is not practical information. I'm like, I don't give a fuck, you don't hear this shit, right? Because you never know. If somebody snatches me up, I need you to be like, hey, yo, I need you to be like, something's not right here. That's not. And then figure out how you're gonna move. Make sure my kid is okay. All right. Okay, but you want me to believe that they loved each other and she had no awareness. They didn't sit and have discussions about parallel universes, theoretical physics. They're supposed to love each other. No, they would have been immersed in conversations, because I don't know how many of you guys are listening to that. I know there's quite a few physicists that actually watch the show and listen, and shout out. Thank you guys for the messages that you sent. But like, you're talking to loved ones about this, even if they don't want to hear the shit. Like, you're talking to your friends, you're talking to them, you're like, because quantum physics doesn't make any sense. So the way people with these sort of minds work is that they want to talk it out. Like that's why we have the podcast. That's why you have people writing in. Like they want people, like anybody who that is willing to listen, they're going to discuss it. So you want me to believe that she was married to this guy and they were deeply in love enough for this guy to jump fucking realities to try to find the one where they're together and they have a kid and she doesn't know nothing about nothing? No. In a parallel universe, Blake Crouch wrote the book Dark Matter, but his wife figured that shit out very quickly. And then they actually had a conversation as a couple. And then he told her the truth. Like, this is what happened. I actually came through. And then she has to make a decision. And the decision is, who are you going to choose? That's a more interesting story.
Jay, that's dark.
What?
Jolie, that is dark.
How's it dark?
Jolie, I bought Jason B's monologue. That monologue he gave Jason A first. I'm going to take you into another world. You're going to be rich and famous. It was something about you're going to acclimatize and get used to it. I was like, okay, I'm hearing it. So you're giving someone the opportunity you had, but you're giving it to your other version of yourself. That's kind. Then when he woke up and I saw the whole thing, I'm like, hey, bastard. That's a very mean thing to do. You left, in fact, Jolie, when they revealed that his Daniela was alive, I said, Bajo, you people like that I can't trust. My brother and I have been having this conversation. We do that to your own self. I can't bring myself to do. If they said my whole brain is, let me settle. If they said his Daniela died, it's okay. I can just accept. It's okay because you came and I can sympathize. Like the people who love the Thanos thing, the snapping of the finger in Infinity War, I wouldn't do it if you gave me the gauntlet. I wouldn't do it, but I can get it. But your Daniela didn't die. She just aborted the child like you told her to abort. You then got the money you've been gagging for. You then created something no one has ever fathomed in their entire existence. Maybe they did in parallel Earth, but in your Earth, you are practically a demigod. You now chose to jump ship and go and find another version. Julie, let's stop.
I'm sorry. I've said I always root for villains. Like to me,
I know what now that one you just said, that is because I said, you know what, the amount of work when he was doing like this. What was he doing the other day? He said, what's Tina's age again? I'm just asking. I forget. Your father forgets. What's her birthday again? What Tony? What car was he driving? I said, oh my God, I didn't even think of that. You left your house where they born you. Enter here. You now have to do 15 years catch up. 15 years catch up in how many months?
You gotta respect that. Like, I'm sorry.
Wickedness. Your Daniela is at home. Go back to her until I say, baby, I'm sorry I did.
He said, no, I want this one.
No, I beg.
This one that loves me. That's a man that's ambitious. You gotta respect it.
No way, Jolie. I gave the guy one chance. So that's a cold thing to do. Then he had the buzz and said, I'm going to put cement around the thing. If I catch that guy, I'll cook you slowly.
I'm not saying that the character, the Daniela, doesn't end up regretting it after the fact. That could be the twist. Like maybe after that, she like then it starts to dawn on her like, well, this nigga's crazy. Maybe because she's an artist, she made an impulsive decision and she saw it with it. And she was just like, okay, let's close the box. But then this guy finally, he got what he wanted. And then she started to realize all the things that you're pointing out. And so everything that you're saying right now, where you're like, wait, this guy actually sat here and 15 years was like, let me just see, can I have that information? Maybe that's the story when she starts going like, wait a minute, like I fucked up. And then that's the story. It's not him versus him. It's him versus her, where she's now going like, okay, like regardless of, yes, this version of my husband was able to give me the money and the wealth and this, that, and the other. But this nigga's crazy.
Okay. Now,
and then she has to figure out how to like first get rid of him. And then learn the box. And then she has to go and find dude. That to me.
You see how you do full circle this something? And now that's the correct person. Good sister, brother. Julie, that one is sweet. Then she has to be the one who saves. But we still have a cliffhanger, a bit loose thread. Amanda.
Fucking man, what the fuck is going on?
God, yo, Jolie.
I'd have left her ass a long time ago. The moment they ran into the world where it was snow, spoiler, and this bitch took off out the box, I would have shut the door. Immediately, no. Girl, you're on your own. Immediately, no.
In heels. What are you doing?
Yo, don't you remember? There was a scene in the show where like he already was like, okay, this is stressful. And she's like, They open up the box and it's snowing like a blizzard, like just
This
this
just runs
high
out.
snow.
Yeah.
And she just runs into, I can't take
At
it
nighttime, by
anymore.
the way. At
At
nighttime.
night in a snowstorm. I don't want to be in the box anymore. At that moment, there's no witnesses. You guys are learning a lot about my character.
Amanda, who? What kind of name is Amanda?
Immediately, I would have been like, bam.
Reality.
Mm.
She was a good
Because
one. She was
one,
a good one.
you're using two vials at once. So you got to split the vials between two
Yeah.
people.
Yeah.
One you just solved the problem that I didn't know I had. Thank you. Bye. Because you ran. That was a choice. I didn't push you. You chose to leave the box. Now I have all your vials, so I can continue on my mission. Because
I can
also what
take
he
my
found
time.
out was,
That they can take his time to find home.
because her mind was, so we find out that it's like what you're thinking dictates like where you end up. So this whole time, how do you know? And I don't know what they're going to do with the show, but she has feelings for him. How do you know this whole time
She's not sabotaging.
he's not like, I don't want, yeah, let's go to a world where, how do you know? Because there's a difference in Jason B's strategy. He's doing the jumping by himself.
Yeah.
I don't know
And he's
why.
clear-minded.
I know exactly.
He wants this. Hey, this is years in the making. I want this shit. Even though it's twisted because your Amanda, your Daniela isn't dead. She's still there. You can
You're
see
like, you could have just got to talk to her.
My brother and I, because he asked me, say, is she dead? I said, no. So why is he's a bitch? He was asking are they making him the villain? I was like, dude, it's like trying to, we use our grandma, for example. She's passed another world. It's not like she's alive here and if she's a douchebag here, it makes sense to go to another world, but she's nice. We get that. But your Amanda is here. And it's not like when she saw Jason A, she was throwing stones at him. Get out of here. You made me
Yeah, she had
abort the
painted
child.
him. She made a
That's what
whole
I'm
art
saying.
exhibit. So she clearly already had feelings, but maybe she couldn't have kids anymore.
It better be that because
she is older.
A bit though, right?
Like
Just
they're in
by a
their
bit.
40s. Yeah. So,
It
and
better be
because
that
the
she can't
kids
have children.
like maybe they just didn't put that on there because they didn't want to
Yet.
be weird, but maybe that's why it was about going where they had the kid, because remember, he had her have the abortion.
Yeah.
So if he's about going back where she didn't do that, in a way he's also trying to correct something, because she ended up never having kids. She doesn't have kids in that reality. And she essentially put herself into her work the way he put himself into his work, and then their work became their kids in a way. You know what I mean? And so if he's trying to go back to essentially to correct the problem, if she can't have any more kids because, she's older, then that makes sense.
Then that makes him more of a prick. That's a big discussion. In what I love about the show is it's the little things. I love how you mentioned the money thing earlier on, because of the world we live in, the construct and this illusion of money. If I get it to an extent, I get it, but I feel it's the connection that is the weight of the show. I don't know how I can bring myself to enter a world of my own self, remove myself from that world, and try to just carry on 15 years. It's different when you're dating someone who has a 15-year-old child, male or female, and you're the stepfather to that child. You're building something new. That's not your blood per se, but you're coming into a world where this child is your son. Maybe not, your blood code might be different. Maybe A negative or whatever. I wonder if that's something they're going to touch on as well. If Daniela A does a blood test on Jason B's and realizes his blood type is different from Jason A's blood type, there has to be a slight variation. His characteristics is one thing, but I wonder if the blood type stays the same across all the multiverses. But to bring myself to do that, remove my own self first. I don't know I can do that. I don't know. I've been tossing back and forth with that. I do not know if I can do that. And to do that to myself and then fit myself in my current son's cycle. He happens to be 14 as well. I no, I have to catch up. Then I'm having to ask certain questions, get used to the plus side is I'm getting to know my son by being in his presence and experiencing him. But the experiences we've had, or my other version of me would have had prior to that, is priceless. Those are unique experiences. When he fell skateboarding and my initial parent reaction to go and pick him up or let him get up on his own. First baseball game. If we're in Nigeria, different first whatever sports, music, songs, first date, crush, What else? When grandma passed away, when granddad passed away, or maybe you don't even have a connection with grand. It's this is so many layers that I don't. That's I. That's why I was rooting for him at first. But like, no, to do that, and to have weird sense of a clear mind, I can do this. The first thing I thought of, funny enough, aside from the family, obvious thing of Daniela and his son, were the children in the school. The children or teenagers he's teaching. That's the first thing, aside from the obvious thing of family. Like, dude, his ripple effect of his choice, removing Jason A, how he interacts with the students now is going to be very different. If you had brought that upbeat thing, you're more outdoorsy, we're more practical now, we're not on our laptops anymore. Like you said, the technology is one thing, but be more physical. Then I'd be like, okay, maybe this Jason B is teaching us how to be more of ourselves, not this cookie cutter fixed, like you got to do this. Okay, guys, get out of class. Gravity, Apple. You're experimenting. You're being more practical outdoors. But then he quits his job and he seems too cold. It's like you're affecting the butterfly effect and ripple effect was saying you're affecting a lot of people based on your decision. You came here for your son, or for Daniela. Did you even know that Jason A had a child? So when you intended, did you?
He came to the world where he had a
Damn
kid.
it!
But
Jody,
I think it's aligned with his personality, though. I don't think that that's a
Yeah.
deviation from who he is. This is a person who makes selfish decisions.
Mhm.
Like, he asked a woman like to have an abortion because he wanted to focus on his career, and then he came back because he was like, "Oh, well, let me see what happened if I want that life." And now he has a power, like you're saying, he's essentially a demigod. So he's like, I've got the power using science to go back and take somebody else's life because I'm aware that there is an infinite amount of versions of me. And you cannot, it's almost like billionaires.
Ooh.
Because that in a way is a weird superpower. Do you know what I mean? You've got more money than you can spend in one lifetime. It does something to you, to have access to an infinite amount of realities, and over again, you see yourself die. You see yourself, because yes, his mind was single-minded, but I don't think he got in a box and immediately went to.
Of course not.
No, there was a certain, he had to learn how the box worked, because if you watch the show, he's teaching other people how the box works. If it was just a straight shot, he wouldn't be able to teach. Yeah. Like he would be like, no, you got to set your mind, and then this is where, and then even to control it, because when he took his friends, he was like, I'm taking you somewhere. So he was telling them.
Yes.
So that tells me it was experience. He learned how to do that. That means he had to go through some shit. I'm sorry, but when you have access to things that 99.999% of human beings do not have access to, it does something to you. It has to. Like I said, to go back to billionaires, it's one thing when you're just like, hey, I'm just making like 5 figures and I'm just trying to like make it and pay my bills. And then you move to that next level where you're like, I'm making 6 figures, my bills are taken care of, I got money in the bank. And then you move to 7 figures where it's like, okay, like I don't even have to worry about bills. Like if I want something, I could just get it. Then you go to 8 figures where it's like, I have a private jet. Do you understand like what that means? Like if I right now wanted to go to London right now, there's nothing stopping me. Right now, if I was a billionaire, I would call somebody up and say, prepare the jet. Even your relationship with the world changes. You want food, as soon as you think of it, it's yours. That's a demigod. So you can't have access to that level of wealth, or that level of, in the case of Jason, power. And then on top of that, you've seen other versions of yourself, and not think that that's not like you're one. Who knows how many versions of himself he saw? He probably is thinking like he's the one, like Jet Li, I'm the superior one, because maybe he's the only one who was able to create this box. So he's already feeling like I'm better. And then 2, he's going in. Like, to me, what was most unsettling and felt a bit rapey, to be perfectly honest, was the first episode, because I'm like, that's not your wife, bro. Do you know what I mean? Like, she thinks it's, but you just went in and under deceptive, like you went in and you just, that to me was more unsettling than anything else. But him
instantly.
Yeah, because I'm like, bro, like that's weird. And you know what you're doing.
Yeah, he's been thirsty for it for a long time.
watching them, all that's weird. I did put that to the side because I'm like, whatever. But I think in his mind, he was like, well, I didn't kill him. All I did was shift worlds. If I can adjust in this reality, he'll figure it out. And I think that's how he rationalized it.
Yes, hence that monologue. I'm giving you something you never had before. You're going to be richer. It's something along the lines of you're going to be rich and famous. You're going to have the life that you wish you had. And then, are you happy? Almost this black and white, as if the decision you made, you're unhappy. I get it, because when Ryan won the thing, Ryan did say this should have been you. It's almost like they traded lives as well because of the decision. And I like the way they made Jason go to the contemplation of Daniela is pregnant. Let me step away for a while and just sit down with myself. And like when you and I started this podcast earlier on, that whole idea of the construct we're in this environment, where when some of us aren't given the time to think, your partner is pregnant, get a house, get an apartment, and start doing things that you're supposed to do for the child. Jolie, I wouldn't lie to you. I started thinking about children since before the show, obviously, but more so now because of the show. Just the way things are so far, that there is not enough time for some of us to just sit down and say, do I really want this now? And do I really want this at all? 2 children, 4 children, 2 boys, 2 girls, a boy and a girl. It has to be a boy first. Where is that really coming from? Like you mentioned in your podcast, your videos, and I assume your book as well, about the intrusive thoughts, intrusive dreams. I do wonder, even though Jason B created the box, I'm like, okay, you guys are talking about parallel Earths. There must be other Jasons who created the box as well. I'm trying to figure out how that works. The box exists in space and time as a singular thing, but with multiple doors open to multiple realities. Is Jason B the only one that made the box? If so, was that his own dream and intention, or was that an intrusive thought and idea? Because the materials he put together, and both him, Jason B, and Amanda said similar lines. Amanda was very specific as well. You can't lie to this thing as if it's a sentient thing or it's separate from the creator that made. Like if you bake something, you know what ingredients inside. You can't then you wouldn't say, oh, you can't eat that because you don't know if this thing has almonds, for example. Someone's allergic to almonds. It's like, well, I thought you baked the thing. Well, I baked it, but I don't know if the thing has almonds inside it. Why would you say lie to this thing when you who have made the box, surely you should know how?
I want to say that the box is always going to be created.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost like ideas. You want to talk about intrusive thoughts. That's basically what ideas are. You don't invent anything. You're just the one. I talk about this in my book, and I've talked about it on podcasts.
Pulled it in to bring it.
You bring it into this reality. But if you have an idea and you don't act on it, that thing is coming into this reality, whether you like it or not. Yeah. Got it. You've seen musicians talk about this. I think that there was something where Michael Jackson or Prince was saying, one of them too, and one of them said, like, if I don't put the song out, the other one will. So there is an understanding of artists, once again, that you're pulling things into this reality. So perhaps he is just a variant, or he was just the only version of himself. Imagine this near infinite reality. So this box is always going to exist. The ability, it's like AI. I feel like AI was always going to exist and has always existed. It's just what we're seeing is how it comes into being in our reality, and the figures that make it so. Maybe in a parallel universe, it was Bill Gates, not Sam Altman. You know what I mean? But it was always going to happen in realities. Also, to go back to the Dark Matter series, even the timeline of him taking over somebody else's life, that's a branch. It's a predetermined branch. Like, I think people don't realize just how intelligent reality is. So just the whole storyline of somebody from one parallel universe going to another parallel universe and taking him and putting him in a different parallel universe so that you can take over his life, that was a branch. That is a predetermined branch that was always going to, that had the ability to be actualized. He did not invent that reality. That was a storyline that was built in, along with that box coming into existence. It's built in. It's built into the story. So that's just another sort of variant of, okay, you've got one reality where this guy is a teacher. You've got another reality where this guy is a physicist and he's well known. And then you've got one reality where this guy is a physicist, is well known, and goes into a parallel universe and takes over. Like, that's another branch. The universe is complex. And I think we limit it by what we think of as what is possible. and we lack imagination. We lack the imagination, which is why imagination is important. I had somebody comment on one of the videos I did where I talked, I think it was a clip that you and I did in the last episode we did together. And they were like, I really think that what you talk about in this video and things like that should be taught to kids. And that's really important. Like that comment has been on my mind for a really long time since he said it, because because kids are the ones who have the ability to think like this. Could sound be alive, but then they get put in schools and then schools beat it out of them. And so can we create little icons in our reality that allow kids to hold on to something? You simplify it, but it allows them to hold on to that magic, something to the effect of like, could sound be conscious? Could my day have glitched? Have I looped the day? Like these kind of ideas, because they try to ask their parents and their parents say, don't, because I said so. And that gets beat out of them. And then they grow into adults that have lost the ability to ask those kind of questions, to just merely wonder. And there's power there, because if you can allow your brain to do that, then all of a sudden you start to think of anything is possible. And if you believe that anything is possible, then that makes anything possible in this reality. So how does that not benefit us if we go out of our way to figure out ways to help kids hold on to that ability to think? So to tie it back again and to sort of repeat, even the timeline where he takes over the other guy's life, that's another door. That's a construct in a reality that exists, if that makes sense.
So you're saying so by him doing that, he's branched.
He's not creating a reality. It's a reality experience that already exists. He just has branched off to that reality experience of what if. You can't control what happens. We're watching that branching off. Like, okay, well, what happens if a quantum physicist uses a box to go to a parallel universe and take over the life of his parallel self? We're watching that, but that's a branch. It's a pre-existing, predetermined branch that the universe constructed. Because if you can create a storyline where there exists a box that allows for that transfer, then you also have to create storylines where variants of the people who created the box then use the box. Like, you have to think about intelligence, right? Like, and how all of these things are predetermined and all writ into the fabric of space-time. It's a low probability of happening, right? And I'm talking about in that reality. But what we're doing is we're topping in and we're watching. And I would argue that if we can watch something that has been conceptualized and somewhere out there is a Jason or whatever that has figured out a way to jump realities using machine. And while you're hesitant to say that, to accept that, you also have to tell to yourself that the fact that I'm talking to you and you're in the UK and I'm in the US could not have been imagined 100 years ago. This would have been considered impossible. And so from that point on, you really can't write off anything as impossible.
Agreed.
I'm not saying you delve on it and lose your mind on it, but you certainly don't dismiss it. Could your day have looped? I don't think it's impossible. We don't really know what this world is, and we don't really talk to each other when strange things do happen. So if that's the case, and we're simultaneously all having really strange experiences, but then nobody's talking about it, then how can we actually learn what is possible and what isn't possible? And then when people report things as possible and we call them crazy, even if sometimes it's a physicist or a psychologist or saying, I had this experience, but I don't want to talk about it. I'm talking about like near-death experiences, out-of-body experiences, like lucid dreams, stuff like that. And we take these experiences, we push them out to the fringe, and you demonize people for having what could actually be normal experiences. Then how the fuck are we supposed to actually understand our world? Because what we've done is we've taken a box and we've said, this is what reality is supposed to be. But then there's all these doors. And then when people sort of come out of the box and say, well, I've had this experience, you cement that, you cement it, you cement that door, you cement it. No. This is the only version of reality that there can be. But just because you close your eyes to something doesn't negate the existence of all of these things.
Standard law.
Right.
Standard law. Pretty good.
But yeah, so that's sort of my perspective of the whole thing. It's a different story. And maybe we should write the story of the parallel dark matter where she, the artist goes, yeah, no, that's fine. Like, I'm okay with you. And then she seals him out. And then she goes, wait, I don't want this version. And then she has to. I do think it's commendable that you were like, you're like, I couldn't move myself out of his life and take over because I would be mindful of his life experiences. But I feel like the reason why you have that compassion for yourself is because you've had that lived experience. Whereas if you never had kids, then you wouldn't have had that experience to make you compassionate and mindful of that. Like you wouldn't understand the importance of it. So a man like Jason B, who has only ever lived for himself, the longer you only live for yourself, the longer you become a person that can only think of yourself and what you want. Right?
No, I've actually had both. I had the thought of both.
Hmm?
I've had both thoughts.
What do you
Because
mean?
as a father, I had that thought and thought, no, I couldn't do that to myself. And then I thought, okay, if I didn't have my son and I created that thing, I would just go back to Daniela B. And the term "the world is your oyster" is literal. We can go anywhere, and that power that he has, I think it's interesting that they wrote the character as Jason B the way they wrote him, because that is a very interesting power to have. He can still change despite his characteristics of the billionaire mindset. You think because you had this power, you can do anything. Apologize to Daniela, and someone whose mind is in a particular mind space, despite being an artist. You show her this. The world is literally oyster.
But I'm saying, and I'm going to reiterate, you're able to say that because you've had the experience of 14 years of being a father. As a mother myself, I'm telling you, it forces you to think about somebody other than yourself. I would not, there's a version out there of Joe that did not have a kid, and I know
You and me
how she
both.
would be. Hmm?
You and me both.
Yeah, and
But I wouldn't.
we would not. I've got issues already just with like gray areas, but you learn, what I'm saying? I know myself, but you learn and you adapt and you grow and you become sort of emotional. And I know that there's a version out there, like I'm telling you, but when I had my daughter, I had to learn to put somebody else's needs above myself. It just forces you. Like you're sleeping and it's 2 o'clock in the morning and they're crying, you have to get your ass up. So you shift from like, I gotta just look out for me to, oh my God, there's like a baby that I've got to make sure she's okay. And that literally redirected the trajectory of my entire life once I had my kid. Like my entire life, I stopped living for myself and started living for her. Like it is just, these are facts. And so I know that there's a version of Joe out there that if she never had her child would be like, I can imagine her. And I'm telling you right now, I'm not saying that I've got sociopathic tendencies. I'm just saying that like my kid has definitely made me a better person. In a heartbeat, she would take me and put me in a box and be like, I'll just take your life without missing a beat. Because in her mind, logically, it's like, I'm not hurting you. Like, imagine a parallel version where she became like that Joe became famous, and because that was what it was. I had a choice. I can see where my path diverged. I had a choice of like, because I was modeling full time, and I could have gone to LA and my career would have taken over, like taken off. Like I was like on demand, on like back then. I went to LA, and I was like, this is not a good place to raise a child, and that's how I ended up in San Diego. If I didn't have a child, I would never have said this is not a good place to raise a child, and I would have been. And LA is a fucked up place, and that would have made me a different type of person.
The environment and the decisions and
yeah, and these are facts. And so I know in my heart that version of Joe would be like, look, here's an opportunity for you to have that life because you've always wondered what would it have been had you gone to LA. right? So here you go. I'm not harming you. I'm not killing you. Like it's like a parent swap. And that's how she would have rationalized it. If I'm not actively killing anybody, then I'm not doing anything wrong. I'm living that life. It's not a bad life. I'm giving it to you. Go live it. Here's an opportunity for you to have. And in a sense, you probably don't even appreciate, what you have now. So that's fine. I'm telling you, she would have moved in that way. That's why we always have conversations about doppelgangers when you and I talk. I don't know why. This is the second time, but I talked about dark cosmic, but that's why, like, in a scary movie, the scariest thing for me is, like, if I wake up in the middle of the night and I hear some noise and I open the door and there's somebody on the other side, the scariest person to me, it could be, I'm not scared of a ghost. I'm not scared of demons, whatever the fuck. If I open the door and it's me on the other side of that door looking back at me, I'm shaking because I know myself. Like, we know our dark aspects and we know and so it's like, if you have come into my house at night, you're not coming for anything good. And I know what the darkest aspects of myself is capable of. And I know that, like, having the background that I had and the way I was raised and everything has made me this person. Why are you in my space? There's something that scares me. That scares me more than fucking demons or monsters. It's you. Your greatest, even in your own head, your internal monologue, like, your greatest
adversary
is you, and it's here. Now imagine that thing, whatever the fuck it is, your ego is now personified, because that's what it is. That's what the show is really about. That is his ego personified, and has taken over your ego, has taken over your life. Like, you can make it a psychological, movie where it's not even physical. It was like that thing about the dark aspect of ourselves that we always grapple against, with impulse control and not saying the wrong things and doing the right things and being there for our family and all that stuff. But you're always fighting, like, yo, fuck these people. But you try to do the right thing. Now imagine that shifts, and then that version is now at the helm, controlling everything. Just says fuck this job and walks off. You know what I mean? Like, just that's the exploration.
Yeah. So I gotta do a video on him, because there are aspects of that version of Jason that it almost makes sense that you want to pull the different aspects of either of them to merge them as one. That I think that's what the show's trying to do, right? I think, or maybe part of the show is trying to get you to see the useful traits in one and the useful traits in the other, and then pull to become one. Because that fuck this job, yeah, it's not paying you well, underappreciated, but then it's not his fault because it's the system he lives in. That's what I was thinking as well, because of the impact it's having on the children. But then again, when Jason A was in class, were they also on the laptops and doing YouTube? It's a ripple effect, man. But he gets
I
to
bet
live.
you he said fuck this job. I bet you Jason A had that thought.
Jason B actualized it. Yeah.
So that even in itself is an interesting exploration, because you're seeing that what he wants to do, but he never did. And this guy is doing that. It's literally him and his ego. And you
said, personified. Yeah. I'm the version of you that's afraid to say no. Fuck this shit. I'm that version of you actualized.
That goes and takes what it wants.
Yeah.
That goes and moves things, like, tells this guy, I'm not taking that fucking job. Like, his version A wanted to say that when his friend was like, leave your entire fucking life in Chicago and come with me. And he wanted to say it, and then he didn't. And then Jason B, which would be the personification of his ego, comes up and he's like, no, fuck you. Like, I'm not doing that. But it's not that he didn't have that thought. He just had too much to lose. And so he didn't say anything. And so that becomes an exploration. If you go back and you watch the show and you ask yourself, how would I move? It's always funny to me when I see, we'll wrap it up after this, but it was always funny to me when I see these videos where they go something like, would you slap your grandma for $20 million? And people in the comments, I was going to read the comments, and people are like, I'll slap her for like 20,000. Like, she'll be okay. And I'm just like, that's crazy. But then the same people turn around and be like, you know, billionaires are evil people. And I'm like, but I know if I gave you a billionaire, how would you move? You just said you would slap your own grandmother for $20,000. And like, that's what happens when you reach a certain point where you look up and you're like, I have more money than I could buy humans. Like, this is how these motherfuckers are thinking. Like, I want a chef, right? Okay. I can have a chef at my beck and call. I want something made. You pick up whatever, like text them, and in 20 minutes, they've made something. Watch the show Billions if you have the chance, because it's different. It turns you into a different type. Like, it turns you into a kind of like a predator, because you start looking at yourself like as different from humanity. And now that's just money. Like, money is not even real, where I want a house and you can go and buy a fucking island. You could fly anywhere, you could do it, eat anything. And here's the problem that's scary, is that after a certain point, on demand having access to whatever it is that you want, then that you get bored. And then they start doing weird shit.
That's a very weird programming.
What do you mean?
There has to be either, for the sake of logic, there has to be something that the person's experienced in their childhood, it didn't come out proper, or their society, or the environment, or you want to say it's a genetic trait. Why is it that the two concepts don't meet? The idea of having so much money you can do anything, even though we can already do anything, it's just that we're all under this false, unhealthy, temporary construct where you need money to do something, even though this money is not something outside of us from another planet. We can still do things without the.
How many people know that, Cosmic? Like, literally, think about it. So
No,
that trauma that you're talking about is not trauma. That's how we're raised. You're told from jump that you have one, like, most people believe that this is all there is, and what you have is what you have. They don't know about like setting intention and shifting. That you can have what you want. You just have to ignore all the bullshit that's being sent to you, and eventually you'll get there. Like, you don't know that. The average person is taught you got to work really hard, and then you accept your lot in life. Like, you're the one who sent me a video where the guy's like saying like anything is possible, but he wouldn't be doing a video like that if it was something that people already knew. It's like putting out a video that says the sky is blue. Okay. So most people that trauma is exactly what we're socialized. We're socialized with trauma, the trauma of convincing this highly capable being that is capable of shifting realities with conscious intent, that they're powerless, that they're nothing, that you need this. Because then you put people in a situation where then that's all they're chasing is that, because they believe that they're small and there's nothing, they're nothing. So I'm sorry, but I'm speaking to the truth of the matter. Is you take the average person who's going up with that mindset, and you're told they're nothing, and they're repeatedly told you're insignificant, you're a cancer, the human race is a virus, you're just, all you're going to do is live and die, you're a slave, that all the movies that come out and say that, we're cancer on this earth, this, that, and the other, is just repeatedly getting programmed.
Yeah.
And then you separate them, and then you give them like essentially what amounts to near infinite money. What are they going to do? It's going to be like, you grew up in a society of consumerism. The average person is going to consume. How many people are producers? How many people are creators? Look at social media. How many people are creating, and how many people are producing, and how many people are consuming? We have infinitely more consumers than creators. And so what happens if you take the average person, and who has been traumatized by the society that they found? It's all trauma. Life, like in the West, in societies, in civilization, the way we had it now, hoarding of resources, that's trauma. You take a child and its ability to see reality and think anything is possible, and you carve that out of them and turn them into good employees. That's trauma. So then they grow up to adults who like worship money. And you take them, you give them money, and that's exactly what they say. First, they're gonna buy everything, and without realizing that all they're doing is buying like variations of things they already have, expensive versions. Then the next step is like, okay, I'm gonna buy every person. You get a private jet, You get a chef, you get a driver, you get just people that are just treating you like just living for you. Then the step after that is then you just start doing wild shit. I don't know what billionaires do, but they're doing some weird eyes
Of
wide
course.
shut
Yeah,
just
yeah.
type shit out
Yeah,
there.
that's what I'm saying. It's that connection that always occurs every time that I find, even the concept of money that you're right, someone put together. And the first people who build mud huts, for lack of a better term, I don't know if there's a more scientific or elegant term to use, that functions properly, almost like a TARDIS without a time travel or shifting. Maybe it did, who knows? And they didn't need approval from any governor or government or mayor or money. They just, like Jason B, took multiple elements of this environment together and said, "Oh, this is the most viable, sustainable. It lasts long. When the wind blows, it rains, it still stands. So this is the construct and structure we need. This is the density and thickness and consistency we need, without having to. It's yeah. How far we've come,
Well, that's
as
what
some
it
would say,
is.
how we've fallen.
And that reminds me of a conversation I had with a friend. We were talking about operating from a space of like being wasteful. And I
Hmm.
said to her, like, you need to be more wasteful. And it sounds contradictory, but I said the poorest people I know hoard. Like, you go into their house and there's just stuff everywhere. They're holding on to things. And I'm like, what message are you sending to the universe? You're telling the universe that it's not going to provide. And I said, like, the wealthiest people I know are very wasteful. They don't like something, they just throw it away or they give it away, right? Because they're operating from a space of abundance. And even the Bible says this, something to the effect of like, the more you have, more will be given to you. And the less you have, more will be taken away from you. Something to that effect.
Yeah, I know what you're saying.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm not a Christian, but wisdom is
yeah,
wisdom.
yeah. Exactly. That's a
Um,
very familiar. I remember it.
and I said, like, think about an animal. So when a wolf tracks down a deer and it kills it, a wolf is wasteful. What it does is it goes for the organs. It doesn't actually eat the carcass.
Hmm.
It will eat the brain, it will eat the liver, it will eat the kidneys, because that's where the nutrients are. That's where it's most nutrient dense. It leaves the carcass for other things, vultures, worms. It takes what it needs
Mm.
and it's wasteful. You take a human being, you put it in the same situation. The human being will take the biggest part, it'll cut up the meat, put it in its freezer, sell the other bits, right? It's just, it's like, it's hoarding because it's operating from a space of, I need to hoard. But most animals just go, okay, I need to eat. They get up and they go. Even you talk about ancestors, they just built, like, they looked around, I need land, so they pulled from what was around and then they lived because they trusted the environment, they were part of the environment. And then civilization came and taught us to hoard. I mean, that's how you end up with billions of dollars. You're hoarding. You have more money than you could spend, literally, than you can spend in one
Hmm.
lifetime.
Hmm.
And instead of like giving it back, you hold on to it. If you reach a point where you have more money than you can spend, and you're still, what are you? I understand saving if when you're making, 5 figures, 6 figures, whatever, because you've got to make that shit last your lifetime and maybe make sure that your kids are okay too.
Hmm.
But once you get more money than your kids and your kids' kids can spend, and you're still holding on to it, you're hoarding. That there's a problem there. You're
Mm.
operating from a space of lack. And then
Hmm.
that
For sure.
creates a certain level of a poverty in spirit.
Mm. Mm.
It's a different way to sort of move, you know. I don't know how
Agree.
to tie that to dark matter and Jason. Maybe you do, but what I
Uh,
said to her was,
sorry, go on.
all I said to her was try to be more wasteful. Like, she's dating. And so the person that she's with, like, she keeps holding on to him. And it's kind of an abusive relationship. And she's been on and again, off again with this guy. And I'm like, you gotta let go. There's billions of people. And you know in your heart what you want, but you're holding on to this because you're afraid that you won't be able to find what you're looking for. And by you holding on to something out of fear, you're definitely not going to be able to find what you're looking for. But I guarantee you, the moment you let go and say that I don't want this, then the universe will bring you something else. What about this? No, I promise you, it will keep bringing you some. Even the house, we were looking for a house. We set my husband and I set our mind of what house we wanted. We went to go look, this, and this. I was like, nothing in these rows of houses are the ones that is what we said we wanted. And he was like, well, I feel like if we don't pick something, we'll be able to find a house. I said, you just gotta trust. I just finished reading Neville Goddard, and he was like, ignore what you see. I said, we just have to trust it. And he goes, you know what? Fine, I trust you. Exactly. It took 3 tries and some sort of movement here and there. Exactly what we'd said at the beginning, what we wanted. So it's the same thing. And I'm glad we had this conversation to tie back to Jason B. That is something you can learn from him. When he set out to find the reality where the woman kept the baby and then got married, he went into that box knowing that that reality existed. He just had to hold on to it and keep going. Despite the fact that every door he opened showed him something else, he kept going. He kept ignoring, okay, this is just the wrong, this is not it, not it, not it, not it. To reverse it, that's why I find him a stronger character, because he had never experienced what he was searching for. So he was operating from a stronger mindset. Like, despite what I'm being shown, I'm going to get to the reality where she had the kid. The inverse is Jason A, who, that's why I find his character weaker, because for him to find his wife, again, he already knew that that reality existed because he came from there. It shouldn't have been as hard for him to find his own home, right? It was harder for Jason B to find that reality because he'd never experienced it. So he had to move with the same mindset that Neville Goddard talks about, where you ignore everything that you see, set your intention, and despite what reality shows you, keep going. Jason A knew where his wife, like, he knows that that reality exists. So why are you stopping at all these other realities? Like, stop being afraid. Clear your mind. You know that exists. It was harder for Jason B to find the reality that he ended up in because he just had to trust that he was going to get there. And so I feel like there's a lesson there. Villain, hero, whatever the fuck you want. You look at it and you have to use the analogy of the box and all of these doors as sort of a guidepost to you navigating reality spaces. If all realities exist simultaneously as these box in probabilities, and I'm not making this up, this is physics, right? You go read our Mathematical Universe by Max Tegmark. This is a physicist. He wrote about it. You don't have to believe me. There's books on this. Go read A Holographic Universe by Michael Talbot. Go read Cheating the Ferryman by Anthony Peake. Go read What is Real. Go read all of these books. I'm not making this up. They all exist in potentia. Cosmic Trigger. They all exist in potentia. That's a book again. Robert Anton Wilson wrote Cosmic Trigger. So all realities exist in potentia. So in your mind, whatever it is that you desire, just go, that's what I want. And then navigate your mind, navigate your consciousness to that reality experience where you have that. It's not even about like not having desire. Don't make it a desire. You just make it I'm going somewhere. You don't have to have a desire for something. It's just, that's where I'm going. You open the door, you go, okay, I want this. I want this job. You open the door and they're like, you didn't get the job. Okay, shut the door. I want this job. You didn't get the job. Shut the door. Like, you don't make it like, oh my God, I'm never gonna get to like stop making it this thing. It's just that's not the right door. Obviously, as we said in the episode, as we've been discussing, it's not like he opened the first door and went to the reality he was looking for. He had to open several doors. Now, turn it back to, I think it was Malcolm Jamal Warner in that. I don't know what his character is, the black friend.
Oh, I don't even know the actor's name. Leighton.
I thought that was yeah. You're good with names. I'm terrible. But when
I have to memorize it, talk about it.
When he jumps into the box, he has no directions. This nigga's like dragging himself towards the end. Remember, I don't even know what happened to him.
I don't know how they wrote that one. It was a bit unrealistic to me. But go on.
Well,
sorry,
I'm sure they'll bring him back somewhere, but I don't know if that's unrealistic. Because if he's going in and he's wildly opening doors, because that's how a lot of people emotion. I think that's a lesson there. Most people are just like, they're opening doors in a panic. There's no thought, there's no logic, there's no plan. Because even say what you want about Amanda and Jason A, they were going in with their, I understand how these doors work. And I, in the sense of, I know that these are realities that exist right now. They went in with the knowledge, which is what I was saying. Like, most people don't know this. They don't know this is how reality works. They don't know that there's parallel universes that if you hold your intent, and they had to learn intent was needed, but they knew these are all realities. He just ran in, emotional, opening doors, like, and that's where the deviation between going in and making conscious logical moves versus having emotional reactions to shit. And somebody who was going through all of these doors and having emotional reactions, you saw the wear and tear on his body over time to the point where he just ended up disoriented, and God knows if he actually did make it, And then you have the other story of the blonde friend, the black lady with the cropped blonde hair. She got stuck in that one reality, and it was fear. They were like, you don't have to stay here. Keep going. You can go back home. She was afraid. That's another lesson. How many of us have been working towards something and we know that there's a version of reality that we want to experience, but then fear takes over and we just stagnate? She's literally the only living human being on that planet left, and she just stops. Just because you stop doesn't mean that the reality experience that you want to experience doesn't exist. All it means is that you stopped. And it's okay for you to stop. If that's how you want to live the rest of your life, that's fine. The universe is indifferent. It's like a book. It doesn't care what page you turn to. You're the consciousness. You're choosing what you experience. It is what it is. It is what it is. So that, I think, was impressive, what they did there, whether it was conscious or not, how fear gets us stuck, how at least she was even able to enter into one reality. Then you have Nathan's character, who he couldn't even get out of the box because he was just acting emotional. Like, so it was just taking him wherever the fuck. And you could see the wear and tear, what he did to his body. And they're probably going to find him dead, really.
Yeah, so you're right. He didn't even create a mental marker to at least observe the world and say, well,
how many people
looks like this. Yeah, 5 p.m. the building, the city line, depending on how the world greeted him when he opened the door. Because from our perspective, Jason A and Amanda, they had this skyline. That's how the world greeted them every time they opened it. Most of the worlds, anyway, apart from the water one and the no atmosphere one and the snow one, yeah, and then the post-apocalyptic one, then the forest one with the looking like it was a werewolf. So you're correct. You're absolutely right. They made Leighton's character correct. He went in with fear, even when he said, "This world has nothing left for me anymore." Funny, we can tell that the thread that runs through most of the characters is his love for his grandfather. He didn't even have the intention or desire to see his grandfather. I'm in this space now, and there's nothing left for me in this world anymore. Where do I want to go? Instead, he still wants to find Jason. He's still angry at Jason B for leaving him there. He's still tethered to Jason B. I want to find Jason because Jason.
And that's where regret. You keep looking backwards and you're just spiraling of all these realities. It's not even about, it's just bullshit and emotion.
Yeah.
As opposed to lean like, where do I want to go?
Yeah.
Not what has happened. Where do I want to be? Where am I trying to go? Fuck all that happened behind you. If you listen to people, you hear what they're saying. They're mostly talking about in the past. How can you go forward if you're looking backwards? Set your intention. Where do you want to go? And I promise you, the doors you open will be no, 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 no. And that's okay. Because you, as a pilot that's navigating, we don't unfortunately live in a reality that takes people from childhood. And maybe that should be the book. You write a kid's book that says, hey, hold it here and you'll get there. If we lived in a parallel universe where from childhood you go to school and school isn't teaching you how to be a slave, school is teaching you how to consciously shift realities. It's teaching you are a multidimensional being existing in 3D form. And what you hold in your mind as intention will allow you to shift. So we are learning this now. most people are becoming more sapient in their 20s, in their 30s, and they're like really starting to go, oh shit, okay, I can do this. It's like learning to paint, though. It's gonna look like shit. Being able to shift, you're gonna open the wrong doors a few times before you start getting really better and better. And so what we have is we have a Jason A who, okay, he had to learn. And then you have Jason B, where he's just going in, he's like, I need this, I'm just gonna go get it. I need that, I'm gonna go get it. I want to drop my friend off in this reality and leave him there. I'm gonna find the exact reality that I know he's gonna like and take him in the first go and drop him off. That's what we're capable of, or we would have been capable of if from childhood we had the time, we're taught how to do these things. But if you listen to people, like the person goes, I'm looking for a job. And they've had several people say no. And then they go like, I don't think I'll ever find a job, or I hope I find a job. What are you hoping for? To find a job. You're not looking to be able to turn yourself into gold. You're looking for a fucking job. And I promise you, once you get that job, you're going to hate the job in 6 months. It's not that serious. Yeah, stop making it just because you got a few no's. Understand that those no's are you opening the wrong doors. Just shut it and keep going. Sometimes you'll even open the door and it might be a job, but it may not be the job that you want. You have to be willing to explore that, then leave, shut the door, and keep going. But you and the reality in which you have the job exists. You just have to navigate your consciousness to that reality. It's in the book. So you're living in a simulation, available now on Amazon. And for those of you who read the book, please do leave reviews. I would really appreciate it. And the audiobook version is coming soon. Yeah, it's a good show.
A very good show.
If you watch it with these themes in mind.
Yeah.
You know.
See, that way you don't get carried away or lost or too invested, but you see past the standard stuff and debate stuff. Like, I'm so excited for my brother to start watching it. He's like, oh, I mean, it's okay. I'm like, damn it. Another one bites the dust. Because he and I did talk about some grand things sometimes. So I thought he would be on board with this one in terms of that topic. I even got Constance to watch it as well. She's like, episode 5 now. So I'm like, don't even mention it, I beg. I won't even mention it to you anymore. I used to watch, I say, hey, if you bring it up, you fight, because me, I love the show. Especially how you and I are talking about it right now. You're giving me different perspective that I didn't have. I didn't make the time to observe. And I deliberately did that with Jason B. I didn't want to see Jason B as a villain at first. I'm not saying that he is indefinite. I mean, is it indefinitely? I don't know if it's just that word. I'm not saying that he is, but it's the aspect. I like to just sit down and say, you know what? I'm used to the good guy and the bad guy, but then we just pull back and go, yo, pull that from this dude, pull that from that dude. What would you do? As you said, the different version, the darker version of us, yo, they didn't have that experience. So, hey, I ain't got a son over here. I'm yanking homeboy. Plus, you got the money. And then I was thinking of where he left all that money behind and he came here. But he did say to Leighton that you can't carry money over the barcode thing. Then I thought to myself, well, if you make an account, surely you can still carry the digital aspect of that currency to another world, because there's no physical notes for the serial. Because that part, although you're smart, you did a good job, because you could just bring millions in bags, because then the serial numbers would be different. Then you get caught.
Now you're in jail.
Cool.
But he probably had to learn that the hard way.
I don't know if it's the the show breezing through the whole thing, but I don't think, like you said, he couldn't have just opened the first door and Jason A's world was there. And then the barcode thing, he must have learned so many things. Nah.
That's why I'm saying it sounds like I'm being a dickhead, but I'm like, aside from what he did with the wife, and even then I was like, is that cheating? It's still him. I don't know. But aside from that part where he just went in and like just whatever, that's a weird gray area. I'm sorry, but I'm gonna respect a superior human in the way, in the sense of like, this is a man who has learned to move with intention, and he's playing on a different level than Jason A. Because just watching what Jason A is going through and having the crutch of another person, Amanda, with him, this guy had to do this on his own. So not only did he create this machine in the first place, so that's a superior version of Jason. because he created this thing. He didn't just resign himself to being like, okay, I'm just gonna be a professor. So this one is living up to like his full potential, you know,
Mm.
of a physicist. This one is living up to like, you know, is a good potential as a husband. I don't even think he's living up to the full potential of a husband, because like if you listen to the wife, like he didn't encourage her to pursue her art. And like
That's why he made the split decision. That's the part I was like, that's why I relate to this dude so much. He chose to say, you know what, she's pregnant. Let me do the thing that is to be done as a man who has impregnated a woman. It is not proper to leave a woman alone when she's pregnant.
and
Or
I hear
say,
that, but I'm saying like even in their relationship, when Jason B takes over and he's like, let's go to like an art show, she was surprised. That told me that her husband didn't support her in her art. Go back and watch like the early episode. That's what I'm saying. Like he's
feel
not
the
even like,
regrets now, Jolie. If you wanted to be a physicist and you're like, not to be a father, you know what? The show is being sneaky. They both have regrets. She
that's what
gave
I'm
up the
saying.
art
It would have
thing,
made more
yeah.
sense for her to be
Gave
like,
up
tell
the
me, and then shut the door. Like make me a bad guy because I'm being honest.
Jolie
Like,
wants this. Yo, better.
huh?
First of all, how would I even know if you're a different variant of yourself as well, Jolie? This talk
What
you're
you
talking
mean?
now, I wouldn't have. Jolie, let me talk to your hubby and say, hey, can we just cross-reference if this is the same Jolie? There's a few lines I said to her last year. Let me see if you remember. Don't even go into your phone. Let me just repeat the lines. If you don't remember, I'm like, she's not the real Jolie. Find somebody. Come get
I'm
your
the
girl.
real
She's
one.
not...
I'm just the more real one. Listen.
You're really making me rethink the whole thing, honestly. And I
No, go back
appreciate
and watch it. Like, go back and watch. I'm gonna go back after this too, and I'm gonna rewatch it because, like, if you listen, he's not a good husband. A good husband would encourage her to pursue her art. The fact that she's working in a gallery and not painting, that part hurt me. When she was like, I haven't painted in years. I was like, bitch, what you doing?
Yeah,
And this
there
man is
was
not, huh?
yeah, it was weird. It was to be curating and not to be part of the gallery
Yeah.
and have you.
And the part where she lost it on him when he was like, essentially, he took her work and displayed it. I was like, why is she tripping? Like, she was like, it's not even that good, bitch. Okay, fine, whatever. Like, that didn't make any sense to me because that didn't make any sense to me at all. But that told
I
me,
think Jolie the artist is sorry, go on. I keep cutting you off. Sorry.
no, go on, go on.
I think you're seeing it from your perspective. When she did that, I saw myself in Jason 2's shoes, and I saw my son's mother. If I was still hung up on my son's mother, and I wanted a different version of her in a different Earth, that's the part that I thought Jason B brave. You could say it was brave to do what he did, but El Pollo Loco, 15 years, you don't know the nuances. He literally just saw it as smooth as water, as clear as water. You paint? Come, surprise. Bah! Out of the gallery. Literally, it's like, yeah, what do you think? They love it. She's like, I didn't. When she started reacting, I agree with you. I was like, calm down.
You agree with her? I was like, what's wrong
No,
with
I agree
tripping?
with you because I was
Oh,
like,
okay.
it
Yeah,
makes
because I was like,
sense.
what is your fucking problem?
I was like, so now imagine the fact. So I was thinking, so when Jason B left his world, there's no way his Daniela was like that. There's no way because she paints, obviously. So he assumed this Daniela is the same as his Daniela, which is where the El Pollo Loco thing comes in. You studied these guys long enough, but you don't know the nuances. The fact that she flipped it, I was like, hey, this is why you are not meant to be here. The Jason A
I would have
that
laughed.
you
Like,
that's
I would
what
have
I'm
got
saying.
the ick
You
immediately.
swapped.
Like,
Oh my god. That's
this
why
is what I
he
came
was
here
built
for.
for her. Yes. I started feeling bad for him. I'm like, it's your fault because you didn't think this through. You are giving your son allergy food. Now you are seeing her spaz. Yeah, I looked at the app. He's like, this is nice. He says it's not finished. I guess
So,
from someone who does, yeah. Someone who's not an artist like that is not. This looks finished to me. I'm like, no wonder the other Jason just said, she's pregnant. Fuck it, I'll just become a teacher. And I said the other. So now you're saying Jason B is stronger. I think Jason A is stronger because for all I care, this bitch might flip her shit and kill this dude. Yo, she might be like, I'm sick of your shit. Sick of your shit. The fact that you don't stole my original husband because he dealt with me nicely. You can't deal with me. Surely you clearly can't. At least he got because they made it look like Jason A went off into the sunset, had to sit down and adjust his mind to match the fact that I imagine Daniela had to give. Imagine she said, "There's no point painting as a mother." Also, the other world where Daniela is blonde, I wonder if she had a baby in that world, or if she was a parent in that world, being that she owned the gallery and she had. Did she have an art piece? She didn't.
It was
That's
her
interesting.
gallery. That's why she was
Yeah.
like, I can't leave. I believe it was her shit.
I wonder if they're going to introduce a world where Daniela has both. She's the mother, she has the gallery, and she has an art piece there as well. And she's welcoming, she's encouraging, and she teaches art. I wonder if that's another parallel Earth where that exists. I would like to see that because it's almost like the show is doing this whole what would you give up to attain, even though it's given this grand concept of you can literally go anywhere. Look where they left Ryan A in the Aurora future world. I'm like, my guy, don't even complain. You are in a world you have not. Huh?
How's he gonna get
Well,
money? That was the
Jolie, real talk.
that was the first thing I thought of. You just gonna leave him?
Nah, nah. In that future world, you've left me at home. I'm at peace. Anyone I talk to, just take me to the police, mayor, scientist.
What are you gonna
What do you
say?
mean?
I'm from a parallel universe.
Jolie, in a world, did you see how futuristic that thing looked? I'm going to
You
spill
like you didn't see all the
everything.
glowing?
What? Nah, because he got it. As soon as he came with the vial, that's what I'm saying. It's like there's a limit to stupidity you can allow because before the brain just says, fuck it, let's do it. There's no way you put me there. I'm panicking that night. Where am I going to sleep in the first place? True, because I don't know if there's any animals, creatures, bugs. And I don't even know if the atmosphere is good enough for me to breathe before my lungs collapse or something. But the way the world just looked at that particular shot we got,
He's like,
I would
yeah, this is
panic that
nice.
night. For real. When I wake up in the morning, I'm going to see local authorities, everyone, how this is world. Is there cars? Can I walk? I'll just scream like a lunatic. Help, help. What's wrong? Come. Now give me your phone, please. I want to see how the phones look. Yeah, test my blood. Do everything you need to do to get out of the are you sure? I don't believe you. Is it true? Test, test, test. Did you get it? Now let's converse. Because I'm your living proof that I'm from somewhere else. You can test clothes, texture, fabric, everything. What I drank, my gut, what I ate before I came here, everything. The box, I see when you close the door, the box disappears or something. I don't even know if the box stays there physically when they close the door. Yo, I feel Ryan is in the better place than Leighton B and Leighton A went to see his grandfather, I assume, or he's world hopping. He already got trained by Jason B, but Ryan A is in a better place
I mean, he
because he
did
said,
say when Jason dropped him off, he was like, I chose the best world for you that like you would do
yeah,
okay. That's why I'm like, I don't know
he has to come back.
if he's the bad. No, I don't think he's coming back. He's gone. But I don't know. Maybe though. Maybe that's what they'll do for season 2. But then I feel like that's a jump from the book.
The book,
But maybe who knows. But that's why I was like, I don't think Jason. I think Jason B is actually the main character. Imagine somebody else is the main character on your own shit because
gotcha.
he doesn't actively, at least not yet anyway, he's not hurting anybody. And it's actually kind of sad because he romanticized what's her name? The wife.
Daniela.
And he romanticized her. And to your point, like it's right, like he just thought like, oh, she's just this version. So all I just have to go is give her the opportunity. And the moment she lost her shit on him, I think even the audience was like,
we were Jason B. Yeah, like
yeah.
girl, this shit look good. It's not on. What is unfinished? It's not like she had one eyeball that looks unfinished. Like, oh, you didn't finish the blue here. There's a little hint of blue and gray. It's faded. So this doesn't look finished. I didn't even look at the art piece and go, that looks unfinished.
It was good.
Yes.
Yeah. But I think also with her crying 16 years later for a baby that they lost 16 years ago that was supposed to be a twin and one didn't make it, that was a little like they're trying to tell us something. Like, do you know what I mean? Like she may not be emotionally stable. You know what I mean? Whereas the Daniela that he had met, the one that got, I'm not gonna spoil it, but you know what happened to her. I was like, oh, are we doing this? Like that's the moment I started watching the show.
Oh no wonder it peaked for you there. I was like, golly.
They didn't have to do that.
Yeah, they didn't.
They didn't have to do that. That was mean. But yeah, I get your point, and I think your point is valid that instead of just jumping realities, he could have just gone and talked to her because she seemed like the more mentally and emotionally stable.
Mm-hmm.
She understood right away where he was from. She was fulfilled in her work, and she still had feelings for him to the point where she's painting him 15, 16 years later. All that guy had to do was just go and be like, sorry, I fucked up. You want to try? And you got more money than you know what to do with. You could have figured out a way to clone and make a baby or something if it was that important for you to have a child or jump to, I don't know. Okay, that was about to get dark. Never
No,
mind.
I was about to say, what if they jump to another world where she's giving birth or she dies in childbirth and they happen to
And
be
take the
there?
baby. Yeah.
World is your oyster, literally infinite, as they describe the show. Infinite world, infinite reality, so infinite parallel, even though it's a split
Yeah.
decision. Because beg God, the show is doing a lot, and I don't know what message or messages it is trying to
Well, I think in a way it's brilliant because
convey
now
out of
we're
the book.
having a conversation about a book on parallel universes. And as we're talking about it, we're also discussing parallel universes.
Mm,
And I think that it's so meta in a way. And I
yeah.
like that because we're talking about like, well, how could he in a parallel universe could a different book have been written? That's cool. Like that doesn't happen. Like how many other shows are you able to think in that way? Like in a parallel version of Earth, there exists another book called Dark Matter, but the
Mm,
story is different. Is there a
mm,
story where he shifts, and then he finds her, and then he's like, oh, this one's not. And then he goes back to his world, and it's actually a romance. And he goes like, I'm sorry, this is what's happened. And, let's go and find a world where you didn't make it and you were a single mom or something. And I left you. I made a really fucked up choice and I left you and you had this baby and died, and then let's raise that child, you know
mm.
that would have been a different. But so
Yeah.
I do like it because of, and it's kind of sad that most people from your experience that you're interacting with aren't thinking on that level of of the show, because I think that there's so many really cool themes in it. There's Eastern mysticism, there's physics, but there's also like a creative aspect where we talk about okay, like what could he have done versus this versus that. And there's also psychological analysis going on. You're looking at these characters, that nuance. If Daniela A ends up being like unstable, and then it does kind of suck to be Jason B, and then he's about to figure out like you're smart, but you definitely don't understand women,
Mm,
you know, like, and then it also makes you think like, is it her that made it so, not to blame the woman, but is it her that made it so he wasn't fulfilled in his life and ended up being a professor? Because why did he have to give up his career just because they had a kid? Why did they both have to give up their careers just because
that
they had a kid?
that's the conversation.
Right.
You shouldn't have to. You shouldn't. And this is even parallel to the Invincible show on, it's a cartoon, season 2 on Amazon Prime. There was a scene where a guy, ooh, spoilers? No, it's not a spoiler. Where he could tap into multiple realities, and he brought all the intelligent versions of himself into one world.
Hmm.
I'm surprised they didn't address this or discuss this, especially with multiple Jasons. How will that world look? I guess if it was a movie, then you could, I would literally like Rick and Morty. I would find a council of all cosmic Jedi's, all the kings in one room and say, yo, let's talk. Because you do that, then you're able to tap into all the different realities where things are cosmically imbalanced to assist a particular small nation, city, state, village, and help with tech ideas and whatnot, and assists like a watcher role and guide and say, hey, this parallel version you're about to type into is not going to work out for you guys long term. So we can assist you here, dude. It's my head was spinning when this idea came along. My brain was just saying, oh, Jet Li's the one. Deja vu with Denzel Washington. Live Die Repeat with Tom Cruise. Everything just ping back and forth. Even my life, I was like, dude, I was literally thinking, if I hadn't had a son, is it even good for me to think that if I wasn't a father? But then again, he's a soul who's coming to this world to have this experience. So he was meant to be here. But what does he was meant to be here or in this timeline? I was like, these are concepts you already know of, but meant to be, is that something we tell ourselves, or meant to be exists? But sometimes when we say meant to be, it's not really meant to be, because we're telling ourselves that to. I said this is one of the best shows. Outer Range was number one for me. Amazon Prime. Outer Range season 1 and 2. I was like, this is it's a number one. But when this one came out, first two episodes, like Arthur Range is number two. This one just sat at number one instantly because it's dealing with a lot of things. Typical topic of regret. But I feel, like you said, in this world, I feel our bodies are the physical personification of the box that jumps to different realities. I guess from childhood, time travel, I say the mind does it when you think back, or smell can trigger past memories. I've been around someone's house before, and the food they're cooking, I'm like, dude, I just stood still, and I was flashbacking to when I was a child, at a particular memory that I couldn't actively remember until that smell from that meal triggered that memory. I was like, I don't even know if I buried that deliberately, consciously, unconsciously, subconsciously. So I'm observing the show differently. Like you said earlier on, keep opening the door to get that one outcome you desire and that you require. Because essentially, we're not here to just do stuff for the sake of doing to harm others. We're here to just to be, and what being is shouldn't have to be quantified with just words, for lack of a better term. Even this dead ass language you're using, I feel it's so limiting. English. I love the show very much because I can't even quantify or use all the words that I know or don't know to say why people should watch it or encourage someone to check it out. If you can, cool. If it's up your alley, cool. If it's not, it's not a bad thing. It's a beautiful show, and I shouldn't have to watch a show to teach me not to regret or to let go of regret. But I'm appreciative of the show and the fact that all these minds of people I've ever met before, from the writer of the book to the writers of the show, I don't know if they had a relationship, if they converse, if they just ask for permission and the writer of the book is just gone, okay, you have a permission, is out, or if he or she, it's a male writer, right?
The
I don't know
author.
if he's involved. Thank you, the author. If he's observing the show and saying, "I wish you'd done this differently," like for example with George Lucas when he let go of Star Wars. I don't know the relationship the author has with the showrunners, but it's beautiful. I feel it's needed in this point in time with so many things going on in the world, and it's shining a light on the silliness of things that are going on within ourselves, and just reminding us of that infinite ability and gifts that we have and that we are.
I'm gonna say this and then I'll let you guys go. So I used to have really bad like anxiety and also like a fear of missing out. And over time, I've learned, especially by adopting this idea of like infinite realities or near infinite realities existing as probabilities, and also like the concept of the eternal return. I've learned like to let things go. If you recognize and you believe and you accept that this is not, you don't just get one go, you are not your body, your consciousness having various experiences, then you don't hold on, you don't hoard. So if somebody pops into your life and it's not working the way you want it to work, it's okay to let them go. And you can just tell yourself, like, you know what? Somewhere out there is a parallel universe where it does work out. I'm not on that timeline. And I'm not willing to compromise how I'm treated in order to force myself, force this timeline to be what it's not wanting to be, or force this person to be in this timeline something that they are not wanting to be. So what I've learned to do is just to say, like, if it wasn't meant to be in this timeline, maybe in another go. And the amount of times that I go, maybe another go, like, has severely lessened anxiety for me. You also become more of a watcher, because if you go, okay, I make this choice and now I'm going to watch to see how the story unfolds, you don't hold on to that same level of like intensity as if you think this is your only lifetime or the only timeline that exists that you can experience. You just go, okay, so I've made this choice. You then start consciously making choices where you go, you know what, I could pick up the phone and do this and then branch off to another reality. Or I could choose to not answer this person or not call this person or not go out and then experience this reality. And then reality itself takes on a new level of intensity, of density, of complexity that's great for the brain, because you then start seeing the doors, the proverbial doors, so to speak, that say, for example, Cosmic, you go, hey, let's hop on the podcast today. I could have said, no, let's not. Let's do tomorrow. And then that would have shifted me into a different path where we're not having this conversation. This doesn't get recorded. And maybe if it gets recorded tomorrow, another episode would have come through. And
Mm.
then the people who watched that would have had a different experience than the people who are going to watch this. But all of these different options based on the actions, they exist right now simultaneously. And it's just the choice of whether to say yes or say no shifts my consciousness down this path and then this path and then this path. And then once you start living with that, with the understanding that there's all these other paths, but I'm going to see what happens here, it does make you feel more in control and less likely to feel regret. Like, to go back to what I said, like, there was a time when I had a choice and I could have lived in LA, but instead I chose to live in San Diego. I no longer think, what if? I do believe that this is probably a better timeline. I like the person I am now. And it's not that if I can't go back in time, I wouldn't want to. It's not about going back in time. It's that path will always be there for me. Should I decide to reboot and come back again, more than likely I'll probably make that choice, assuming I haven't already made that choice in a past iteration and realize, fuck that, because there's a reason I said no to that and went this way instead. And so if you start moving in that way, then why would you regret anything? If you tell yourself that there was a reality where I did that, and more than likely it probably didn't end well, that's why I don't want to do it again. There's something that remembers. There's something in you that remembers, and you have to trust it. You have to trust it comes off as what you would call your intuition, but I think intuition is a type of soul memory, and you have to learn to trust it. That's it for me.
We like that one very much. Yeah, we like that.
All right. Well, on that note, thanks for watching.
Indeed.
All right.